All right. This is Rudy Davis. It's October the 27th, the year 2016. I just finished reading Not Guilty, the Unlawful Prosecution of U.S. Senator Ted Stevens last night, written by Rob Cary. It's 335 pages. This is absolutely a must read. I've got a lot of good things to say about it, but let me go ahead and just get the negative things out of the way. So this book lifts Senator Ted Stevens to almost like idol-like status. You know, he's Alaskan of the century, and I think Senator Ted Stevens probably comes from my dad's generation, so I kind of understand where Rob Cary is coming from. My dad was, kind of along the lines of a Senator Ted Stevens, the same mentality, the same sort of hard work ethic and uncompromising character and honest and integrity and things like that. So, but anyway, I don't know Senator Ted Stevens enough to comment, in detail about his life, but the book does lift him up quite a bit. The problems that I have with the book, and like I said, I want to get that out of the way first before I go into the good things, is it uplifts Judge Emmett Sullivan for simply doing the right thing. Talks about if Judge Emmett Sullivan hadn't been a good judge, that the prosecutors, could have got away with it. And it also uplifts that Schulke report as being a hard-hitting report. Well, it's not a hard-hitting report when the prosecutors, keep in mind what the prosecutors did, Bottini, Brenda Morris, Nick Marsh, James Gokey, what they did to Senator Ted Stevens was to cause him to lose the re-election bid. Not only that, but they caused him to, lose his reputation and thus lose the election. And they committed some criminal acts that caused a wrongful conviction. Of course, he argues that it wasn't actually a conviction because it was never signed by the papers by the judge. But they were criminal acts. And that Schulke report, did they lose their job? Did they get fined? Did they go to jail? No. You can write a 525-page report and talk about how bad somebody is, but if they keep their job and they keep their freedom and they continue doing what they're doing, then you're just encouraging other prosecutors to do the same thing because they'll continue to act like they're above the law. So I wouldn't call the Schulke report a hard-hitting report. There was no teeth in it. But so other than it also praises Eric Holder, and I just couldn't stomach that. I mean, if Rob Cary wants to praise Eric Holder, that tells me volumes about his level of awareness of going beyond the left-right paradigm and how we have an oligarchy controlling both sides of this country. And also the book doesn't address the question as to why the prosecutors would have wanted to target Senator Ted Stevens on a bogus bribery charge or, concealing gifts. They actually charged Senator Ted Stevens. He got renovations to his home, and they said that he tried to conceal it on forms. As far as I remember reading this book, it never addresses why the prosecutors would want to go after Senator Ted Stevens on that. And if you don't address why they would target Ted Stevens, say, well, it was to further their career and to go after a big fish, but the book fails to recognize that Senator Ted Stevens is just one target in a strategical list of targets that the Obama wasn't even in office, right? He was just coming into office, but because we have an oligarchy that controls both Bush and Obama, they picked the presidents, right? And they were targeting Schaefer Cox and Senator Ted Stevens even before Obama came into office. And so I often refer to the Obama administration, but we all know that there's an oligarchy that controls the Federal Reserve, that controls our presidents, and thus they give orders down through the Department of Justice. And that's what this book fails to recognize. When it uplifts Eric Holder and it talks about, how hard-hitting the Schulke report is and how great Judge Emmett Sullivan is, that made me want to puke. But, okay, let me go to the good stuff now. You're not going to get a better report for the criminality of Bottini, Nick Marsh, who committed suicide, and Brenda Morris. Okay, this book reveals in just a raw way how criminal they are. Okay, and in order to further their own career and why they went after not why, but how they went after Senator Ted Stevens. And the book puts forth the idea that, well, they were just trying to further their own career and go after a big fish. But I believe they were ordered by someone on, higher up in the food chain to go after Senator Ted Stevens. And you've got a war going on between the executive branch who instructs the Department of Justice and the legislative branch. Of course, that would be Senator Ted Stevens. And you had the judicial branch trying to be the mediator. Ultimately, I believe that our Department of Justice, Office of Public Integrity, has no integrity, and the orders that come down from them, and you think, well, the top attorney general in the United States is the one calling the shots. Before Eric Holder, it was some dude, I can't remember his name now. I think he had white hair. Let me look up his name. Who was the attorney general before Eric Holder? So he was preceded by a guy by the name of Michael Mukasey. He was succeeded by Loretta Lynch. Let me look up Michael Mukasey. I seem to remember him having white hair. I don't know if that's true or not. But yeah, he was a kind of an older white dude with white hair. But anyway, so the thing is that I believe there's a group of people that go beyond an oligarchy that is like a shadow government, and they've picked Michael Mukasey and they've picked Eric Holder, and it's, the same, the old boss is just like the new boss, you know what I mean? So anyway, but the book, let me say the good points about the book. I don't mean to be rambling, I just woke up, but the book really, really reveals like how dirty they did Ted Stevens, how they lied, how they manipulated witnesses, and they would fly witnesses in from Alaska. They argued that the case should be held in Washington, D.C. instead of Alaska, and they just outright lied and covered up evidence. And a lot of this is thrown on Nick Marsh. We have to wonder whether Nick Marsh actually committed suicide or whether he was murdered and used as a scapegoat. We also have to wonder if the plane crash for Senator Ted Stevens was to take him out of the picture, because he would have been very aware of all of their dirty tricks and would have exposed them at a much higher level. So this book does a good job of like cleaning the room in the house that's known as the Senator Ted Stevens room. At the end of the book, he does offer that if Senator Ted Stevens has a hard time getting a fair trial, that what chances do you and I and Schaefer Cox have? So he makes some good points. He even offers some solutions on how it could be fixed to fix prosecutorial misconduct. But my concern is, and again I'll say this in closing, is that even though he might expose and reveal and document the Senator Ted Stevens room of a very, very corrupt house, there's many, many other rooms in the house. Okay, there's a Schaefer Cox room, there's a Matthew Bryce Quellar room, there's a Charles Dyer July 4th Patriot room. And ultimately you have to ask yourself, why is the head of the people that are in charge of the Department of Justice making a list of strategic targets who they identify as political dissidents? Why do we have CMU prisons in America? How do they accomplish these things across different attorney generals? Because all of these attorney generals are reporting to the same bosses, and that's the problem I have with the book. It doesn't go far enough, and it doesn't reveal the bigger picture. And I'm concerned that ultimately the bottom line is, if we just look at what was revealed in this book, we were shown some horrific criminal things done by Brenda Morris, Bottini, Nick Marsh, and James Gokey, and the Department of Justice Office of Public Integrity. So we have to ask ourselves, given what this book just revealed, was anybody fined? Did anybody lose their job? Was anybody suspended? Did anybody go to jail? Well, the answer is no. The answer is no. Well, there you go. Nothing's changed. Nothing will change. And all it does is embolden other prosecutors to do the same thing, because, hey, what happened to Bottini when he did what he did? Nothing. He still got his job. He didn't even get suspended. He didn't even get fined. So if you're gonna do that sort of punishment and no punishment for the evildoers, well, then other prosecutors are emboldened to do the same thing. And this book didn't change anything. The 525-page Schulke report didn't change anything, and all of the writings out of Judge Emmett Sullivan didn't change anything, and Lisa Murkowski and Dan Sullivan and Rob Cary and Sidney Powell, they all continue to ignore Schaefer Cox. They all treat him like a redheaded stepchild, and the government and the Department of Justice chose to ignore a pedophile to go after an honest senator. Right? I don't think the senator was guilty of what they said he was guilty of. And so they gave a pedophile, Bill Allen, an alleged pedophile, and I may be using the word alleged. He might have been convicted. I need to go investigate that. But, I think he did actually spend some time. I don't know if it was for pedophilia or for another crime, but he did, they write about in there. I need to go refresh my memory on what he got, charges were brought against him, but I forgot what charges were brought. But anyway, I've rambled on long enough. This book is absolutely a must-read, but yet again, it falls short of what is needed. And I don't know that we have anybody left in America that can actually reveal what is needed. I think we're going to need Jesus Christ to fix this thing. Anyway, God bless.